Hey everybody! Welcome to Friday the 13th, the series. I'm your producer, Robert.
And I'm your guest, Matt.
And after a complete, spoiler-filled recap of the episode, we are going to discuss the show you either just learned existed or always wondered how it existed. We promise the answers will be few and far between because we're just here to have some goofity fun exploring a show that, despite or possibly even because of its faults, isn't good and isn't so bad it's good, but is still somehow oddly charming. Let's dive in, shall we? Bienvenidos to part 2 of our episode 15 review and the real reason you've returned, to spend more quality time with friend of the show, TV's Matt. He watched the show as a child and has seen many episodes. I'm watching one by one and have no clue what's going to happen next. In just a minute, we'll continue our discussion, then I'll continue my glib recounting of the episode. That dynamic will repeat. Then we'll most likely fail to predict the future of the show in the segment we do for penance, Crystal Ball. Just one point of housekeeping before we begin. The antagonist of this episode is an actress the production went to lengths to make conventionally unattractive, and although Matt and I do briefly comment on her paucity of physical beauty, we're not referring to the young lady herself, but the result of the time she spent in the hair and makeup trailer, and the television archetypes for good looks and lack thereof. If you'd like to see for yourself what the hell I'm rambling about, every episode of the TV show can be watched on YouTube for free, so check it out before it's taken down again. As always, a convenient link can be found on the Inner Demon Entertainment website. You know, it's like the opening of this episode, because this goes 0 to 60.
Oh, absolutely.
This whole little side story that sets up the curio, man, it moves fast.
It really does. Wasn't expecting it to already be introducing the cursed item and having someone get killed off in a spectacularly slapsticky kind of way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we not only established the curio, but these characters, a bit of backstory between them, character motivations, and it just whipsaws. Where at first it seems like Sylvia, the flower cart vendor, really does like this guy and want his affection. And then the moment she gets it, courtesy of the curio, she instantly goes evil and murders him within seconds.
It made me wonder, was she actually interested in him, or was this all some kind of a ruse just so she could kill him?
What did you think of the murder via fire escape ladder?
Very, I think, unintentionally funny.
Stand right here.
Yeah.
And was it me, or did that stunt person really seem like they got whacked?
Oh, yeah. I'm very curious how they managed that, if the ladder wasn't actually made of metal.
Concussion, I think, was their plan. Am I wrong, Matt? Or is there functionally no difference between her elaborate plan involving the compact and then killing him with a fire escape ladder versus simply, I don't know, just shooting him?
Well, not everyone has access to a gun, Rob.
That's right, it is Canada. I don't know, stabbing him in the neck with a particularly large thorn from one of her roses.
Right. It goes back to the whole idea of, do these cursed objects turn people evil?
The eternal debate.
As opposed to them already being evil and just happening upon something that they can use for that. The Cupid's Arrow episode.
Episode 3, Cupid's Quiver.
The plot for this is kind of similar. An object that makes people fall in love with you. And also, for some odd reason, the person using the cursed object feels that they need to kill whoever they have affected with it.
Well, that is especially weird in this episode because Jack mentions at one point that the person affected by the compact then has to die. Okay, I'll go along with it. It's a cursed item, but how is that information conveyed to any person that gets their hand on the compact?
It must be the item itself having an influence on them, planting this thing in their heads. It's like, all right, now you have to kill this person. I demand it.
Yeah, I guess this episode does hint at that, although I just like to think that it's just insane odds that these items can only end up with serial killers.
Right.
And absolute psychopaths. I keep coming back to that word you used, slapstick, and I'm tempted to also add farce to our lexicon because
Okay, yeah.
seconds after killing him via ladder, Sylvia runs out into the street and is then hit by a car.
Yeah.
The speed with which this thing takes off, Matt, is just insane. It's a rocket ship.
They've only got like 45 minutes to work with, so.
The object is immediately picked up by Helen, our Carrie in training.
Yeah. That was another weird similarity between this and Cupid's Quiver. Both of the cursed items are stolen from crime scenes.
Interesting point. I'd forgotten about that with Cupid's Quiver.
I guess I can understand why, at least with the compact, that probably wouldn't be something that, say, the police would care about, but it was very weird with the Cupid's Quiver episode.
Everything was weird with the Cupid's Quiver episode.
That's fair.
Remind me, Eddie, we presume he was going to keep Lori as some kind of slave, right?
Well, yeah, because he genuinely seemed to want to be with her, or maybe more correctly, want to possess her, but there's definitely something off about him to begin with.
Yes, as there is with anyone who lives in a boiler room. Sorry, I said it, and I stand by it. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, Matt, but when they look at the newspaper, a crime scene reporter took a photo of a body under a sheet with Helen in the background picking up the compact.
Very fortuitous.
And wearing her letter jacket with the back to the camera so that they could see which high school she goes to.
Sometimes they just get really lucky.
I'm telling you, this show, it runs on a coincidence-based economy. We get a little discussion in Curious Goods about how they're overwhelmed. They actually throw out real stats and figures for once about how many items they've collected, which percentage of the total number of items that makes. They discuss hiring help. This is like the most Ghostbusters the show ever gets so far.
Oh, okay, yeah. I hadn't actually made that comparison, but yeah.
There's like some real nitty gritty, some real concerns about how they're doing what they're doing, how they could potentially expand. Mickey's pushing for them to do more and maybe hire staff, but then Jack points out, can we really trust other people outside our little circle with these objects? It adds a lot of verisimilitude to the whole idea of a haunted curio shop.
Right, yeah. Just a quick aside, though, what was that hat that Mickey was wearing? My first thought was like, is that a fez? But it's too big to be one of those, but it's got that tassel.
I can't believe you described it like that. That's exactly what I wrote in my script. Is Mickey wearing a fez of some sort?
Right. It's just a very strange choice.
Yeah, I thought, oh, well, maybe it's like a Jackie O pillbox hat, then also just has a tassel. But once you put the tassel on it, you're in fez territory, man.
Yeah, especially since the hat doesn't have a brim to it or anything.
Yeah, and I think it's furry. I don't know, man. It's not one of those Russian hats you're thinking of. It's some weird amalgamation of all three. But the hat's so extreme, you don't even notice the dress she's wearing, which is also kind of weird.
Oh, the hat totally drew all the attention, and I didn't notice the dress, no.
It's like a reverse corset. It's kind of odd, but your eye is so completely drawn to the hat, you don't even notice. So who is your favorite of our troika?
Probably Marshak.
Chris Wiggins as Crackerjack Marshak?
Before I watched more episodes of the show again, anytime I tried to think of what he looked like, I just imagine Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis from Halloween.
I still do every single time.
Good, I'm not alone in that one. Okay. He's highly competent. He's occasionally pretty funny. He's a good character.
He survived a fall down an elevator shaft and was fine by the next week.
There's the opening scene, and Helen picks up the compact, and then I think it's the next time we see her, she's walking with her sister and her sister's boyfriend, and then the bullies start going at her, and my first thought was, holy crap, that's Scott Farkas.
I'm going to go ahead and level with you, and I'll apologize because I'm sure I'm going to do it again. It was not until I was researching this episode that I realized the name is actually Scott.
Yes.
And not Scott.
Right.
In my defense, I came to A Christmas Story very late.
It's not like you'd actually think of that as somebody's name.
Yeah, we need more Bort license plates.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I tried to pull that card once with Aubrey, and then you informed me that you knew someone in high school named Aubrey. But I did not think Scott was a human being's name.
I I know that A Christmas Story is based on a memoir, but I do have to wonder how much of that was fictionalized. Scott Farkus is a name that you make up, almost a bit Dickensian.
Was your mind blown when you saw him?
Yeah, a little bit, because I looked up his IMDb page after that, and that guy has been working far more steadily than I thought.
I was literally just about to say that. Once again, we're on the exact same page.
It seems mostly like one-off guest roles on TV shows like this, but it doesn't seem like he's slowed down at all.
No, and he's still working. Folks at home, we're not going to stop referring to him as Scott Farkus, but the actor's name, he is a real human being with a real human name. Greg Mazzy?
No, I think that's the character's name.
Yes, good call. Best laid plans of mice and men. I'm sorry, not Scott Farkus, not Greg Mazzy. The actor's name is Zach Ward, a perfectly cromulent name that embiggens my heart. He was in, among other things, an episode of that show I've mentioned from time to time, Maniac Mansion. That strange Canadian show.
Yeah, no, I saw a few episodes of that, yeah.
You've seen a few episodes of Maniac Mansion. Under what circumstances?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where, if I remember correctly, just kind of like bored on a Sunday afternoon and it just happened to be on. The only thing I remember about it is that Joe Flaherty was in it. That's it.
That is the reason to check it out. That and love of the video game.
Which I never played. Mainly because it came out at a time when I didn't have like a console or anything.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, we're a Monkey Island house around these parts.
That's another game I'm aware of, but haven't played. Unfortunately, I have trouble going back to old games like that.
You don't have a nostalgia for that time period? Pixel graphics?
Not really. I got an NES right before the Super Nintendo came out. Didn't play a ton of games with it, mainly because they're expensive. I was a kid who didn't have money and would have to wait for birthday or Christmas to get something like that, or rent it from the video store.
Yeah, it's stunning to think that some of those Nintendo games are basically at the same price level as modern games today.
Oh, no kidding.
I still don't know how that's possible. Did you watch any other Canadian shows? Did you see some SCTV growing up?
Saw a little bit of that because I think that was one of those things they showed on Nick at Night. I watched a lot of that, saw a lot of old 50s and 60s sitcoms that way. I don't know if this is Canadian, but I watched the animated series, the Something Misadventures of Ed Grimley.
Yeah, the animated show.
Yeah, well, obviously there's Martin Short, and Joe Flaherty would show up every now and then as other characters, and even had a regular Count Floyd segment, which I thought was amazing.
That is some deep cut reference right there. But yeah, I think it played Saturday mornings where I was at.
Yeah, same.
Getting back on track, trying our hardest to actually pay some respect to Zach Ward, Sliders, Party of Five, Walker, Texas Ranger, Nash Bridges, Jag, NYPD Blue, 2 episodes there.
Oh, wow.
The Pretender, he was in Almost Famous.
Oh, no crap.
I can't be certain. It was probably just someone in a scene, some other band or some fan or something. But yeah, he was in Almost Famous. He brought up The Outer Limits earlier, and he was in, obviously, the newer version.
Mm-hmm.
But he was in a show called Titus that I remember watching an episode or two of in college and actually really enjoying. He had a prominent role in that as the main character, Titus's brother.
Oh, okay.
So he had a nice long 2-season run of television there.
Huh.
He was also in Freddy vs. Jason.
Oh, wow. Forgot about that.
David Orth, who plays Scott in this episode. I didn't mean to look ahead, but I did happen to notice that I guess he's actually in 3 episodes of Friday the 13th, the series, playing different characters, one assumes, unless the next 2 are prequels. And then this was news to me. Apparently there was The Hitchhiker TV series.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And it ran for a long time.
Oh, really?
It ran from 83 to 91.
Whoa. I don't think I became aware of it until like the late 80s.
It's like The Highlander.
Jeff and John actually talked about it in an episode of their podcast.
This wasn't the one that dovetails with Red Shoe Diaries and Daffy Duck hiding in the bushes outside a couple getting it on, was it?
Yes. Jerking off in the bushes, yeah.
Oh, I wish I could remember which episode that was.
If I remember correctly, they also made some kind of a joke about switching it with Tales from the Crypt, where the Crypt Keeper was hiding in the bushes watching people have sex.
Oh, that's right. Oh, I love those guys. Delightful. David Orth was also on an episode of the RoboCop TV show. Did you ever see any episodes of that?
I don't believe I did. I think by that time I had seen RoboCop 2 and 3 and they were both awful, so I didn't have any faith that the show would be any good.
Fool me once, RoboCop, shame on you.
Exactly.
You get one chance with Matt. Also in FX The Series, which is a series that I'm actually really curious to check out since I was weirdly enamored of the FX movies when I was a kid.
That first movie's great. I don't remember the second one very well, but the first movie's really good.
I'm sure the second one is not great, but that's the one that introduced me to the series, so I have a special affection for it.
The only thing I remember about FX2 is that there's some kind of like animatronic clown that the main character uses to beat up a bad guy or something.
Yeah, animatronic creatures were a thing in those movies.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have mascots exactly, unless you want to count Brian Dennehy.
Right.
I'm guessing they were riding Pennywise's coattails there.
Maybe.
David was also in another show that I did not know existed and was curious to learn about, Total Recall 2070.
I want to say it was part of a block that were all produced by the same company.
Was a tech war in there, maybe?
Possibly. There was a Knight Rider series too. No, David Hasselhoff.
The follow-up series?
Yeah, it was like set in the future also.
Oh, is this the 2099 of television shows?
I guess so.
This might intrigue you. Apparently there was The Lost World that aired from 99 to 2002.
It was one of those shows like in my mind grouped with the Hercules and Xena type shows. Zero budget, genre syndicated TV shows.
You have read Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World at some point.
Yes.
You recommend it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, all of the dinosaur science is completely wrong, but it's what they had to go with at the time.
Well, that's the best part, being wrong about dinosaurs.
Yeah, right. It's good. And so is the early silent film adaptation of it, which had stop motion effects by Willis O'Brien.
Oh, wow. David Orth was in 54 episodes of that.
Oh, so he was a regular.
Yeah, that was David Orth's big TV get. Just finishing off David's filmography here, or some of the highlights, of course. Stargate Atlantis, an episode of Supernatural, which is something I've seen crop up a few times while researching Friday the 13th, the series. And then, in that same vein, if you do an episode of Supernatural, you've done at least one episode of Smallville.
Yep.
He's done 2 episodes of that. And then, kind of a weird outlier, in 2015, he had some small role in 50 Shades of Grey.
Huh.
Guessing maybe it shot up in Canada?
Yeah, maybe.
Back from commercial break, Helen is applying makeup in preparation for prom, which is happening that night. This is all happening over one day? The death of Scott Farkas, setting up for the dance, and now the actual event? The same day? Helen's spidey sense goes off when Joanne picks up the compact to admire it, which makes for a fun, if unmotivated, moment of tension, and prompts questions for which we'll never receive answers. Concerning motivation, Joanne simply thinks the compact is pretty, idly fiddles with it, and almost leaves with it out of absent-mindedness, but it's not the one compact to rule them all, and has no hold over her. Helen can simply ask her to hand it over at any time. Regarding questions, is she concerned Joanne might accidentally use it on either of them? Possible, but does it even work on women? Unknown. Down in the bowels of the high school, Ryan stirs, seems to briefly assess his wounds, then passes out again. It's filler, but made about as interesting as it possibly can be by placing the camera on the ground with his twitching hand almost touching the lens. Back at Helen and Joanne's, Scott, corsage box in hand, goads Joanne to hurry up getting ready by way of many an innuendo. You know, he is a bit of a typical 80s sleazeball boyfriend, but Joanne genuinely enjoys the sexually charged banter, so they really are made for each other and qualify as a cute couple in the parlance of our times. I think Scott is probably the Canadian version of an immature, horny jock, so a perfect gentleman by American standards. It's here, during this exchange, when I'm forced to contradict myself and concede Joanne does demonstrate a moment of vanity during her obligatory, dramatic staircase descent. So ring your shame bell if you've got yours handy. And now Mickey is hanging around high schools after dark and wearing the world's puffiest beret as well. In fact, I think she used the commercial break to completely change outfits. And braid her hair? I'm no longer sure this is the same day. Okay, while scrolling through the episode yet again, I now notice that when Ryan looks at the poster announcing the prom, it's advertised as occurring on a Saturday. So perhaps Scott Farkas died on a school day, and now it's the weekend, and everything starting with the scene in which they're setting up the gym is happening on this new day. That would explain why everyone has changed wardrobe, but there are two contradicting factors. First, and I'll concede this one isn't binding, but often a television show's transition to a new day straddles a commercial break. Second, Ryan is sporting a backpack and there are kids in the hall that appear to be attending classes, so this does not feel like a Saturday. A different school day? Sure. A Saturday? Prom Saturday, no less? Absolutely not. Why didn't the writers just set the prom on a Friday? Better question, why does Mickey suddenly have a southern accent when she says, "I can't find him anywhere, and Helen's disappeared"? Russell affected some manner of East Coast upper crust accent way back when we first met him, so did Luis Roby and Simon Reynolds dare each other to slip in an accent? After that cult member spitting out sunflower seeds way back in episode 2, The Poison Pen, I'm convinced the cast and crew snuck in all manner of nonsense. And Mickey, what do you mean she disappeared? Regardless of what day this is, you never had eyes on her. Cut to Joanne pinning a boutonniere on Scott, making this the second time a man has donned a flower in this episode, and nothing worth noting except it's an unusual reversal of the typical scene in which the guy fumbles while pinning on the girl's corsage. Helen now gets her own dark mirror stair descent moment. Unfortunately, it was the 80s, so I have no idea if her ensemble is meant to be hideous or not, but even I can tell her self-applied makeup is something out of Revelations. Kudos to the writers for giving Helen a persecution complex to the point she interprets even genuine and subtle attempts to help her improve her image as harsh criticism used to prevent her from expressing herself. She's a complex character who doesn't simply want Scott to desire her, she wants him to desire her on her own terms. And in a delicious bit of irony, it might actually be Scott's heroic attempts at complimenting Helen and treating her with respect that seal his fate. Now, to jettison all that goodwill with an exposition dump in which Jack reveals the victim of the compact has to be killed. So, what exactly does the user get out of the deal? Just the power trip of being desired by the patsy for a few brief moments before their inevitable murder? And how did any of our antagonists figure that out? More and more, I have to relent and succumb to the headcanon that the haunted curios both call out to those who would misuse their power and somehow impart all esoteric knowledge necessary to operate them. Our plot coincidence levels had been running dangerously low, so Crackerjack Marshak suddenly has a moment of intuition and chooses the correct door to ultimately find Ryan. Apparently, an hours-long discussion and comatose state aren't enough peril for Ryan the Lion, so rats are introduced moments before he's inevitably found. Ah, Friday. I see you've decided to end the farce. Helen previously convinced Joanne and Scott that she has a date coming to pick her up. Why she did that and or what she stands to gain by stalling for time is completely unknown, but now the episode doesn't even attempt to hide its blatant padding. We're just watching three actors kill time for no reason. Riveting stuff. Only when Joanne and Scott finally decide they should hit the old dusty trail does Helen finally lay her vengeance upon Scott, and the combination of her makeup and smile has me certain she's about to ask him, "Why so serious?" Shout out to actress Gwendolyn Pacey. Her reaction to Scott making out with Helen is priceless. Joanne rips her off him, then slaps her, before he shoves Joanne into an armoire hard enough to leave her crumpled on the ground, then slaps her for good measure. Helen proposes killing her, and Scott is happy to oblige. Ryan wakes to discover the rats, mostly ignoring him, then passes out again. Boy, he wasn't exactly the brains of their operation before. Assuming he survives this, any future plans of his might be written in crayon. Intercut with Helen and Scott heading off to prom, with Joanne left upstairs balancing on a stool with a rope around her neck. Well, congratulations, Helen. You've destroyed the one person in the world who genuinely cares about you and is looking out for your best interests. Sisters, am I right? If you like the horror genre as much as we do, you can preview the horror comic book Requiem for a Psychopath right now for free at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. Imagine a world in which horror film slashers are real. Then imagine a troubled teen bringing one out of retirement to help him take revenge on his bullies. It was written by me and drawn by friend of the show, Stephen Yu. Again, that's Requiem for a Psychopath on the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And if you dig it, please either review and rate it 5 stars on Amazon, or don't rate and review it at all. Ratings of less than 5 stars send the algorithm into murder mode for some reason. Thanks. I hope you enjoy it. You know, I gotta be honest, when we meet Helen and she's getting bullied, I had the same thoughts about her as John and Jeff of System Mastery had about Urkel.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the awkward nerd character, but just reeks of confidence.
Yeah.
Like she's just a Tasmanian devil where you're almost afraid of her, despite the fact she's the one being bullied.
Yeah, all I could figure is the constant bullying really gave her a thick skin.
What did you think of this character?
The first thing that popped into my mind was that line from The Simpsons. I meant TV ugly, not ugly ugly. It was interesting how she was made up to look really unattractive, giving her blemishes and all that kind of stuff. They were really trying to drive the point home, apparently.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. Obviously, they matted down her hair, made it look greasy, skin blemishes, but does she actually have a cold sore?
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that.
Does she have herpes, Matt? Is that how far we're going? Where would she get it? She's not making out with a bunch of dudes, or ladies, or anyone.
Right, yeah, no, that's an excellent question.
Maybe that was a bridge too far.
Perhaps. Also, even from the get-go, she just kind of seemed like an asshole.
Exactly. I feel more sympathy almost for the bullies.
It kind of reminded me of that episode of 30 Rock where Liz realizes that the reason why people didn't like her back in college wasn't because she was an awkward nerd, but because she was an asshole.
I know exactly which episode you're referring to. I had the same thought. It's kind of Friday's thing where, strangely, because the episode spends so much time with the antagonists, it's sometimes... It's sometimes the people that are cruel to them that you actually end up relating to. It's all very Spartacus, Matt. It's all very relative. You feel bad for one character, but then they end up in a situation with even worse human beings, and now suddenly you feel sorry for them.
Yeah, no, good old Batiatus. Anytime he interacted with the slaves, you're like, oh God, I hate this guy. And then he would interact with people who were worse than him. You're like, go Batiatus, you get them.
Yeah, that's pretty much the situation here between instantly meeting Helen and Scott Farkas and Russell, the two main bullies.
Right.
What did you think of Russell?
I did sympathize with him when he's telling Helen, you did something and I'm going to find this out and I'm going to nail you.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean about a bully type character suddenly becoming not quite a protagonist, but you sympathize with him and you kind of start rooting for him in a very early Game of Thrones kind of way.
Yeah.
Like a Jaime Lannister. You go from hating this guy to completely understanding where he's coming from almost instantly.
Yeah.
I find his look incredibly interesting. Russell seems like he's the guy who should be getting bullied.
I mainly just remember his hair.
Exactly. He has simultaneously a white guy fro, but then also the world's shortest ponytail. It is an odd combination. And I don't know if he's meant to be a jock, but unlike Greg and Scott, he never wears a leather jacket and in fact wears kind of like a trench coat looking thing. They kind of do the jocks as bullies, but then also have a couple characters that seem like they should be the ones getting bullied actually as bullies. It's all a rich tapestry. Did you latch onto the fact that this presumably is happening in America at prom time, and yet it's cold enough that we can see the actor's breath?
I actually don't remember noticing people's breath, so they got me with that one.
Between the gray sky, the fact that the trees have all lost their leaves, everything about this screams fall, and yet it supposedly happens at prom time.
Just a quick thing going back to Russell. One of the things that I had in my notes is that at one point he suddenly gets an accent. I think it was one of those things where it's like, I can't place what it is. So I'm not sure if that was his regular accent that just happened to bleed through or what exactly happened there.
I might have to go on IMDb one more time and see if there is anything that talks about his nationality.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of that, Russell is played by Simon Reynolds, who, as far as I can tell, is also still working, has an upcoming project. He did some interesting stuff, including a voice for the My Pet Monster cartoon show back in the 80s.
I watched that show.
Oh man, the way you said that, the disdain in your voice, the self-loathing.
No, I was a big fan.
Did you own one of those things?
I did have one of those.
Wow, yeah, our neighbor had one. That was the one that came with plastic handcuffs that were breakable.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, he was actually in the movie Extreme Measures with Gene Hackman, Hugh Grant, and Sarah Jessica Parker.
At first, when you said Extreme Measures, I confused it with Desperate Measures with Michael Keaton.
I did the exact same thing when I was going through the filmography. Both of those films I saw in the theater.
Okay,
As I recall, Extreme Measures is the better one.
gotcha. I just remember in Desperate Measures agreeing with all the people who are saying, all right, how many people have to die just so your kid can get his transplant?
Yeah, it's funny because that movie is about a medical procedure, and Extreme Measures is also a morality tale about science coming up with a cure for people in wheelchairs to be able to walk. Simon Reynolds also in FX the series, The Skulls 2. He was in Cold Creek Manor. That's one of those films where I thought I knew what it was, but I think I'm getting the title confused with a different property. Because when I started reading about it on IMDb, I was thinking to myself, this actually sounds way more interesting and not what I was thinking of. I think I was confusing it with one of the many Stephen King television adaptations. Maybe Rosewood Manor.
You might be thinking of Rose Red. That was the Stephen King miniseries.
Pretty sure I was thinking of Rose Red, thank you. And any other project with Manor, I think. I don't know.
I don't remember for a fact because this would have been like nigh on 20 years ago. So it's very possible that I did watch the whole thing and I just don't remember it. Which I guess that also says something.
Well, did you happen to watch Riding the Bus with My Sister? Because you remember that.
I did not.
Unfortunately, he was in that.
I'm not even familiar with that.
Didn't it come up in either John and Jeff on Movie Mastery or maybe Red Letter Media? That's the now infamous television movie where Rosie O'Donnell played a woman with some mental handicap.
Oh, goodness.
It gets mentioned in the same breath as that one where Gary Oldman is walking around with shoes on his knees, playing a very short
Tiptoes.
Tiptoes, thank you. Yeah, those two are sort of bookends you can put on your shelf of films we can't watch anymore.
Films that probably shouldn't have been made in the first place.
Agreed. He was in that, Dark Water with Jennifer Connelly, Saw 4, and then shortly thereafter, do you remember the film P2? Young girl trapped in a parking garage. We might have seen that together.
Oh, yeah.
Wes Bentley, and I forget the actress at the moment.
Rachel Nichols.
Rachel Nichols. That was one of those, oh yeah, I haven't seen Wes Bentley since American Beauty. What's he been up to? And I think the answer was drugs. A whole lot of drugs. Simon was in at least one episode of the John Waters TV series, Love You to Death.
There was a John Waters TV series?
Yeah, I caught him on a talk show once talking about it. I guess you'd call it a true crime show in which John Waters would tell these stories about, I think specifically heterosexual couples whose relationships ended in murder.
Huh.
You know, slightly antagonistic, trolling the conservatives a little bit, showing that heterosexual marriage isn't always all it's cracked up to be.
Right.
Or at least that's how he pitched it on the talk show. And then Warehouse 13, which is a show that comes up every time I look into the cast of Friday the 13th, the series. Did you ever see any episodes of that?
I did not. Not sure why I didn't check it out because it sounds like something that might be up my alley, but nope, never saw it.
Well, I am the same way. I'm a Warehouse 13 fan. Legitimately, much like Friday the 13th, the series, I would like to check that out at some point. Just for you, Matt, he was in a show called Haven. Oh, you're not going to finish it.
City of Violence.
City of Violence. There we go. Speaking of John and Jeff and System Mastery.
But I'm trying to remember what that show was. Was that the one that was inspired by a Stephen King book?
Statistically, I should probably just say yes. The preponderance of TV movies are based on Stephen King books. But no, I have absolutely no idea what that was. I only put it here because of Haven, City of Violence.
Right.
And then finally, again, a discovery for me. I didn't know that The Firm had a TV series.
If I knew that, I didn't remember it.
From the research I did, it seems to be related. It seems to follow the events of the film.
Okay.
A lawyer taking on some kind of mob organization, and then this series was essentially dealing with the rather negative repercussions of doing that.
Sure.
This has been very enlightening for me, finding some interesting new properties to explore. Hey, is that a disco ball I see, buttressing both our light and mirror motifs? Pretty slick, Friday. there's something off about the students' reaction to Helen showing up to the prom with Scott, and it took me a while to figure it out, but I believe I've found a cogent explanation. The reaction is somehow both big and small, in that every single last person reacts, often with broad physical gestures, yet we don't hear a single word of muttered disapproval or humorous remark, as the production was probably unwilling to splurge on it. So the effect is preternatural, as with all those gang members standing like a line of statues outside Precinct 13. When Mickey and Jack find Russell's corpse, all we see are his legs and a rather dainty pool of blood. Given he was cut in two, they really missed an opportunity here to place his legs more than a shoulder width apart. Side note here, why on earth are you investigating without turning on the light? To hide the actors' mouths in shadow so the ADR isn't as obvious? In a bit of unintentional humor, they're highly distraught when they think it might be Ryan the Lion, then breathe a sigh of relief and just go about their business once Jack confirms it's just an innocent high school kid that was split in twain like dry cedar. Mickey's response to Jack, proposing they figure out their next move, is to volunteer to go look for Ryan. Care to explain how that's different than all your previous moves? I'll wait. Mickey now addresses the point I brought up earlier by inquiring if the compact would work on her. And, as with every other question the characters have this episode, Jack doesn't know. Just to sprinkle a little more salt on the Jack assassination wound, he first asks if she really thinks he would leave her here alone. Where are you planning on going, Jack? And what are you planning on doing once you get there? Guys, your plans might be shambolic, but at least have the common decency to share them with the audience. After Mickey points out her gender-based plot armor, Jack pitches his brilliant plan to stay safe, making sure he doesn't look at the compact. So, I was right? You're safe as long as you close your eyes? God, this is a weird episode. A 40-second long tracking shot informs us every last couple in the gym can't believe Helen and Scott are together. Or it would if we didn't already know that. It's well executed, as is the 6-second high-angle establishing shot that precedes it, but that's 3/4 of a minute of wasted screen time. Back at Helen's house, we're meant to believe that Joanne is having trouble keeping her balance on her hanging stool, but she's moving around so much it looks like she's learning to waltz. Mickey finally discovers Ryan, covered in 2 and then 3 rats, as they were lucky to get animal actor money at all, and weren't about to do multiple takes to maintain continuity. In bold defiance of every first aid protocol, Mickey urges a man with probable spinal damage to his feet. And now I understand Jack's line about not leaving Mickey, and can answer one of my 2 prior questions. His plan was to break into Helen's house, and although it isn't shown, I'm willing to offer some inter-episode continuity that he eventually unbent his lockpicks from episode 12, Faith Healer. Is he expecting to find Helen or the compact, or both? We really don't spend much time with our heroes this episode and don't know their plans, so I have no idea. Once again, 2 wrongs make a right, as the show doesn't have the budget to light this scene in the style of the time, blasting blue rays through the windows as if the moon had somehow gone supernova, so the scene reads surprisingly modern, with the dark areas allowed to actually be dark, creating a striking chiaroscuro effect. For variety, the production next employed a wide, high-angle shot of Joanne, and it's a very effective counterpoint to all the tight, low-angle shots of her thus far. Given the limited amount of space they had to work with, they've made all these cutaways to her about as visually interesting as they possibly could have. I don't know why Jack is skulking around in the dark downstairs, or why he didn't bring a flashlight, or why he didn't head up to where the bedrooms would most likely be, and I'm even less sure why he says, "What in the world?" before turning his gaze to the top of the stairs, because they either forgot to add a sound effect, or said sound effect was drowned out by the score, but the comment coincides with the music climaxing, then falling silent, so it feels like he's reacting as if it's diegetic. No autocorrect, not diabetic, but solid guess. Only while crossing the quad does it dawn on Ryan they must be at the prom. I know you have a head injury, so I'll cut you some slack, but it's like 10 o'clock at night. Mickey, you couldn't puzzle out this one? With that mystery solved, Mickey and a bruised, bloody, sweaty, disheveled Ryan run off to crash a high school prom. Your parents must be so proud. Joanne finally glissades one time too many and slips off the stool. However, for once, one of our protagonists actually gets to be a hero, arriving in time to save a life. There's an interesting moment in this scene for all you members of the last graduating class of film majors before AI prompts replace you. After Jack opens the door, he pauses for about a second as he realizes what he's seeing before rushing to aid Joanne. Nothing about this moment of hesitation is wrong, yet it feels off because film literacy has conditioned us to expect a cut to a tighter shot of Jack's reaction to discovering a young woman hanging from her ceiling. When we don't get it, combined with the fact we're one step ahead of Jack in terms of the peril Joanne is in, Crackerjack Marshak looks a bit foolish, or at least slow on the draw. Unfortunately, the score is then asked to do some heavy lifting as Chris Wiggins, the actor who plays Jack, is saddled with the onerous task of holding Joanne in one arm while withdrawing a pocket knife, then cutting her down with the other, all without slicing her flesh or hair. He does it about as deftly as any of us could, but the sound editor had to draw out the music like that poor opera singer being conducted by Bugs Bunny. Meanwhile, Mickey and Ryan decide stealth is overrated, and Ryan barrels across the gym yelling Helen's name like he's John Doe hailing a detective. Only now, on this third or fourth viewing, does Helen's surprise at seeing Ryan the Lion prompt me to inquire, was she just hoping no one would find 2 bodies on school property that day? Or did she, probably rightly, assume the prom just wouldn't be canceled despite all the horror? You know what? It's fine. Helen created an overly elaborate demise for Joanne in their own house because apparently these 2 high school girls don't have parents, so screw it. Nothing makes sense and we're moving on. Mickey broaches the subject of Scott's impending death at Helen's hands, and that now has me wondering what would happen if Helen were to meet her end before Scott. Would he dodge a bullet? Or would someone else be on the hook for his murder? No time to speculate because Scott decks Ryan. Oh, concussion on top of concussion. Even boxers try to avoid that. Outside, in a total violation of the line, Mickey points out Helen and Scott running off in one direction, while the geography created by the editing and blocking would suggest they're actually running off in the opposite direction. Having momentarily lost their pursuers, Scott flatly proclaims, "Helen, I love you," like a talking doll that always chooses the wrong line for the situation you've constructed. Helen replies, "No, I know the perfect place." Was that no meant to convey, not the time or place, my dude? Atop yet another building, good God, how big is this school? 4 or 5 stories up, they sit on the edge of the roof and Scott proclaims, "Helen, I love you." No, wait, I just wrote that a second ago. And she replies, "I've waited so long to hear you say that." So that can't be. Nope, it is. She's waited so long for him to say the exact phrase he just said one scene prior. Literally 2 lines ago. I guess that no was her actually saying, if the moment isn't suitably romantic, doesn't count. These 2 representatives of America's youth now slow dance 5 stories up on the edge of the parapet beneath an enormous American flag. Hey Canada, are you trying to tell us something? Helen claims Scott doesn't have any idea what she had to do to get him there, but I think he does. He was there for all of it except Russell and Scott Farkas, and fun fact, Helen, those 2, not necessary. A crowd starts to form down below, including Mickey, Ryan, Jack, and Joanne? Jack, you brought Joanne? The girl you were just comforting as she bawled uncontrollably because her sister just tried to have her killed? Well, in no sane world should she be here, but since she is, I have to admit Gwendolyn Pacey is quite the scream queen. Now for the pièce de résistance, the rarely seen 2-person stunt fall. No CGI or wire work here, kids. Just 2 grown adults leaping off a building together. Honestly, I'm not even sure how you do that safely. Well, reversion to the mean is a cruel mistress, and our heroes, protagonists, have reverted to not saving lives. While Mickey and Ryan deal with a doubly traumatized Joanne, Jack fails to find the compact in Helen's purse with the resigned expression of a man realizing he must once again don his corpse-handling gloves. We jump to some emotionally scarred students watching Jack help Joanne, I think, into an ambulance. Bold move, Jack, given that history would suggest you 3 have no interest in providing the authorities with any information about the 4 kids who died violently at this high school in the last few days. Oh, but Mickey and a still bleeding Ryan the Lion are almost 20 feet removed from the cops, so you should all go unnoticed. What does Jack mean when he asks the others, "Why is this one so very hard?" Does he mean this case is taking an emotional toll? Perhaps a final straw or spiritual culmination to all the death and destruction in their wake? Or is he just Chris Farley pummeling himself for being so stupid because they can't find the compact? Kind of a 50-50 split on that one. Welcome to Crystal Ball, the segment where we gaze into the future and let time make fools of us all. This is the first episode where our Troika are not successful and they do not reclaim the haunted object at the end. So that kind of begs the inevitable question, will this compact ever return?
I'd wonder that myself, and it's been long enough since I've seen the show that I don't remember.
And you have not seen every episode, correct?
Correct. There's definitely some that I missed because I was like 9, 10 when this was airing, and it was always at like midnight.
Fair. We'll let you off the hook.
But I am gonna guess that it probably doesn't, just based on the overly episodic nature of the show. But I know that there were some recurring elements, like the uncle who used to own the shop.
Uncle Lewis, yes, he already appeared in episode 5 after initially appearing in episode 1. Since we're taking wildly inaccurate guesses and performing terrible prognostication anyway, about how many episodes do you think you've seen?
Oh, good lord. Do you know off the top of your head how many episodes there actually were?
72.
I've maybe seen like half that, but possibly more.
The lion's share. Just curious, the sampling size you're drawing upon to make your prediction.
Yeah.
This show has some interesting continuity, including things like introducing Ryan's love of comics that they've carried through multiple episodes. There's a bit of a nautical motif regarding them filming on or around ships, and there's some other little bits of continuity that have really surprised me with the show. So I'm going to actually say, given how cheap it is and what a simple concept it is, I think it will actually come back.
That does make sense. Eventually you're going to run out of ideas and someone's going to say, hey, remember that episode with the cursed compact that they never recovered? Let's do that again.
We can dust that off. It's sitting back in the prop department somewhere.
Exactly.
I think the bigger question in my mind is, it seems a bit late to bring it back this season. That seems more like something you would have introduced in episode 2 or 3 and then brought it back at the very end.
Sure.
Seems a little bit late, which means they would have had to have the memory to then call back to it in a later season. It's possible the showrunners might have changed. I have not done that research because I'm trying not to look too far ahead and spoil things. So my question is, did they have a show Bible that included that? Did a writer later on look back and say, oh, that was a neat idea, we should finally follow up with that? Or on the other hand, were the forces behind the show so visionary that they had the groundwork laid where they're like, oh, we're definitely going to set this up and I fully intend to pay it off down the line? That's what I'm not sure of, but I kind of doubt that based on what I do know about the show.
Yeah, same.
So I guess the real question is, did they set it up fully intending to bring it back, which I think they did, and then perhaps just forgot about it down the line?
Right.
When they were under the gun and it actually came time to bang out 24 episodes, did they forget that they ever set that up?
I do enjoy the show, but doesn't strike me as this singular visionary type auteur television that we get nowadays.
Yes, this was not the golden age of television.
Exactly.
To answer my own setup, I think it'll come back, but I think it'll be in seasons 2 or 3. I get the impression that season 3 is a full season, meaning they weren't blindsided and had to wrap it up quickly. So I like to think that they knew that it was coming to a close and they said, are there any loose ends we can wrap up to bring it in for a smooth landing? I like to think so. So fingers crossed, that's my prediction.
It'll definitely be interesting to see if they manage to make it different enough from what came before.
Especially since we already had episode 3, Cupid's Quiver.
Right, yeah.
Hey, we actually talked about this show this time. Fancy that. But we definitely have more to say, so you're in luck. TV's Matt will join us for one more. One quick closing bit of housekeeping. It turns out I was correct when I posited 50 Shades of Grey was probably filmed in Canada. Indeed it was. Vancouver, British Columbia to be specific. Not everything, of course, but the Ryan the Lion's share. I know that would have kept you up, so sleep well tonight, and please, no need to thank me. Thanks for listening, everyone. We know you have a lot of options when choosing a Friday the 13th the Series podcast, and we sincerely thank you for choosing ours. Special thanks to Joshua Romeo for original music and to Stephen Yu for original art. And be sure to check out the Joe on Joe podcast, the only podcast where Joe Schlepsky discusses G.I. Joe. If you want to support our show, you can leave a review and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. If you want an occasional update on our projects, you can sign up for our newsletter at the Inner Demon Entertainment website. And if you want to complain about social media with us on social media, you can find links on our website. And always remember what Carl said to Frylock. It don't matter. None of this matters. Good night, everybody.